Welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. I'm Dimitri, webmaster of thedreamersedge.com and movie critic for BillyDo.com.
I'm Eric, teacher that watches movies.
And welcome to Over Under the Aughts Part 2. And by that, I don't actually mean that we're going to talk about 2005 to 2011. No, instead we're going to talk about the underrated movies between 2000 and 2010.
Those are kind of like the films that we like that most likely did not have the attention that we feel they deserve.
And a lot of it is because, the marketing machine of Hollywood has become so evolved that it's really hard to, get through some of it.
Well, you were saying that, like, there's no more room for...
word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you discover something really cool, is your friend recommended that. But yeah, we're not seeing that anymore, really.
That's true. Thank God for DVD Market, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which allows me to plug something that I always mean to address, because a lot of people talk about downloading and downloading movies so much to rage, and I want to talk about one thing. The Hurt Locker, which won the Oscar, complete independent movie, made on a shoestring budget, did not have any sort of wide release that a movie like that deserved. Usually, when a movie like that wins the Oscar, it's supposed to do gangbusters in home video. It flopped in home video because everybody downloaded it instead of renting it or buying it.
Yeah.
And so for people who think that, Hollywood is so rich and you can download, it's not going to hurt the industry, small movies like The Hurt Locker actually get their ass kicked because of illegal downloading. And we actually have the proof of it. That's exactly what happened to Hurt Locker. Let's talk about some of the movies we wish you would rent and not download.
Absolutely.
So what's your first underrated pick then?
Brick.
Excellent choice.
Yeah. Probably a very, very low budget film. I always forget his name. Joseph
Levitt Gordon.
Yeah, Levitt Gordon. This kid's amazing. Simply brilliant actor. And it's basically an old 1950s noir film. Like the detective who has this girlfriend that calls him up out of the blue, and she says, like, I want to meet you, and then next thing you know, he finds the corpse, and he wants to find who killed her. And the thing is, it's taking place into a school, but it's not a school. It's just like, this is the weird premise that you have like these kids that are talking this speakeasy, like very 1950s language in a way.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to solve the murder. And like any hard-boiled detective, he gets beat up the entire way to the truth. And it is brilliant. It is greatly shot and it's just brilliant. Just great.
I agree completely. And you know what I absolutely love about that movie in terms of the 50s hard-boiled, the 40s, 30s, and 50s hard-boiled dialogue, the young actors who play them all make this very wise decision not to try to pastiche the way of acting of that time. They all play it very modernly. The language is from that era, but the way they play it, they find a way to play it in a modern, convincing way, and they don't try to parody a style that's, before their time. And that totally sells it.
That's interesting. Huh? That's true, because it doesn't feel static.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, they are talking to each other, and there is like some jousting between, and that was the one thing that they actually understood what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like they'll do that, and they end up hamming it up.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, usually in that type of movie, you'll always have the hero going, and stuff like that. And, like, none of that crap in that movie.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, no, I love that movie, too.
Oh, yeah. If you get a chance, it's definitely worth it. And it's also, you might know, a bit like the next movie that he did, The Brothers Bloom.
Well, actually, that was my pick.
Oh, there you go.
The Brothers Bloom, which, never got wide release, so never really found the audience it deserves.
Yeah.
Which is the story of two brothers who are con men, roping a very rich woman into the most elaborate con ever, because one of the brothers wants out of the con game, and the other wants to find the perfect con. And for him, the perfect con is a con where everybody gets what they want, which, when you think about it, is not a con at all.
Yeah, exactly. But he writes like these cons as that Russians wrote novels, right?
Well, that's the thing. This movie is not a con artist movie. This movie is a movie about storytelling. Whenever they talk about the perfect con, what they're talking about is the perfect story.
And you've got some interesting characters in it. And it's true. It's very meta in a sense. And you have like Bang Bang that's That's a great character.
She's such an amazing actress,
and you actually have a camel that drinks. I mean, seriously, that's probably my favorite camel in the whole world, where I'm like, wow, that camel's getting drunk.
Best performance by a camel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, just for the character Bang Bang, like, she's definitely worth it.
Yeah, she's a...
The ending, though.
Oh, that worked for me. I'll
Really?
get to that in a few, but I want to talk a little bit about Bang Bang before. She's, a famous actress in Japan that he brought over to play essentially a silent film character stuck in a talkie.
Yeah.
And what's great about her character is that she actually acts not just like a silent film character, she acts like a silent film character that doesn't understand why everybody's talking, which is great.
And she's the coolest person you could ever find. Like, you end the film and you're like, I want to hang out with Bang Bang.
Oh, totally.
Like, I doubt she'd hang out with me, but yeah, it'd be cool to go to a bar with her.
Oh yeah, she has some of the biggest laughs in the movie, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The ending for me works because all the time the movie is discussing how to tell the perfect story. How can you do justice to the characters, do justice to, the impulse of the storyteller to tell something that feels profound, and, the different needs of the audience. Some of them who will want something that feels emotionally wrenching, and others who just want a happy ending. These are all conflicting needs, and how do you satisfy all of them? And the movie ends with a really ambiguous ending. And I think it's a statement that that's the only way to achieve it, is to leave it open. It's the only way to achieve that.
Okay. For me, I have a problem when they finish on the road. I wouldn't finish it that way. I would probably finish it with the guy looking at his sleeve and realizing what that means. I think that would have more of an impact. Just because at the end, his loss there, I didn't really buy it. And then it's like, okay, let's all get into the car and drive away. I'm like, hey, do you realize what you just lost here? Come on.
Yes, but some people need the happy ending.
I think if he would have seen the sleeves, and if you're smart enough, then you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at the sleeve, for me, like, boom, blackout right there. You understand. And the car drives off, and yeah, you get the realization that maybe the character's gonna realize what's his loss and what's his gain.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that would have been better.
That's interesting.
Next underrated film is called The Lookout, with the exact same actor of Brick.
Another great choice.
In it, he plays somebody with... he's in this world that he doesn't really get. He tries.
Well, he gets the world, he just can't grasp to let his intelligence out.
Yeah, there's a great line where he says, like, I have the money, I have the power. And it's like, any other actor would have said that. It's such a bad line, It sounds like that 1990s rap song, like, I've got the power. Like, it's just really bad, but it works.
Well, it's because there's such desperation in the way he says that line.
Yeah, exactly.
When he says it, he's not talking about power. He's just trying to hold on to what little reasoning he's capable of at a time. It's so fascinating because he plays a mentally deficient person, and he doesn't play, the Rain Man style or, the showy style. And he plays somebody who's intelligent, who just can't access or express that intelligence.
Yeah, he can't. It's almost like a lack of vocabulary in a sense. Yeah. Like, you can see there's the thought, but he doesn't know how to express it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one thing that he plays very well is the frustration of that, where it's like, I want to show you that I understand these things, that I am intelligent. And that was something that I thought was really appealing and also heartbreaking when you see it.
It's so heartbreaking, and it's so honest about people with mental deficiencies that is not seen in Hollywood.
Well, I have students that are dyslexic, and often that's it. Like, you can see that they have ideas, they understand it, but they can't necessarily express it.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, dyslexic kids can't express it, but when you have dysphagia, it's not exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it sometimes, and I see that frustration, and when I saw the film, I was like, ooh, okay, somebody did his homework. Then he had to play Cobra Commander. I don't know why, but whatever.
Right after? No, he did Stop Loss before, but yeah.
And who's the blind guy?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels, who's great.
Hey, he's really good, yeah.
Yeah. I always liked Jeff Daniels personally. Like, I always thought he was an interesting actor. But honestly, like, I don't even need to explain too much. Start watching, like, 10 minutes, you'll be hooked.
Yeah, well, I mean, just, so you know what kind of movie it is. It's this person with this mental deficiency who ends up in the middle of a bank heist.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's kind of cool about it is that there is that sort of metafictional aspect of it, because near the end they are discussing sort of the mechanics of the thriller. Because Jeff Daniels tells him, how to reason, start from the end and go to the beginning step by step. And near the end of the movie, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is sort of evaluating his options, he starts using different techniques that Jeff Daniels taught him, and a lot of them actually reflect how you're supposed to construct a story of this kind, and it's actually a really neat little thing that happens there.
Well, yeah.
I'm gonna switch tracks a little bit into a different type of movie. It's something a little bit lighter, but Danny Boyle's Sunshine never got the audience it deserved as far as I'm concerned. It's a science fiction movie about a crew going to the sun to reignite the sun, because it's going to be the end of the world otherwise.
Yeah, they kind of jumpstart the sun.
Yeah, for me it's actually one of Danny Boyle's strongest movies, and yet it's the one that nobody's really bothered to see. Because, in movies you see people saving the world all the time, and this is one of the rare movies that actually explores how the characters feel about having that kind of burden. And every character in the crew of that spaceship lives that burden differently. And it's all driving them a little bit mad, because the weight of, like, if I screw up, the world is doomed is so enormous. And eventually there is a villain that shows up. And that villain is also an expression of that, of, just how much of a burden it is to save the world. And there's such great reactions because they're such pragmatic, intelligent people. Well, some of the actors in there, there's Michelle Yeoh in it, there's Chris Evans, Cillian Murphy. And what's kind of cool is that at one point they realized that they kind of messed up. They realized that, we don't have enough oxygen to make it to the sun. We screwed up. And one of them just says the most logical thing, and nobody really argues against it because they understand the weight of what it is they're carrying. It was like, well, that's not technically true. There's not enough oxygen for 5 of us to make it to the payload. Mm-hmm. And, from then on the story progresses. It's just those calm, rational reactions from people who understand that their lives don't have quite the meaning of their mission, and how much that weighs on them is just brilliant.
That's interesting. Next film, The Dancer Upstairs by John Malkovich.
I didn't see that.
It's worth it. It's an absolute gorgeous film. The guy that was in No Country for Old Men. Yeah, he used to be a lawyer. He decides to become a policeman in a city that is incredibly corrupted. And his daughter takes ballet. He ends up talking to the dance teacher, and the dance teacher is quite beautiful, and he kind of ends up falling in love with her. And it becomes like this weird little love story. At the same time, he's tracking this terrorist that is coming closer and closer to the city, and next thing you know, it becomes like this revolution. Like, it started in these little scenes where people are blowing up dogs, and all of a sudden there's a dog hanging on every single lamppost with a dynamite in the neck. I just love the juxtaposition of all of a sudden there's a government that's about to be overthrown by a terrorist, and you have this guy that's kind of falling in love with his daughter's dance teacher. John Malkovich, lately he Jonah Hex, Red, Lash.
Well, the thing with John Malkovich as an actor is that he has 2 modes. He has, actor mode, and he has, I will enunciate everything to make things more intense.
Exactly. Mode. But as a director, he's excellent.
Yeah.
He actually weighs this film perfectly. It's beautifully shot, and heavy about it, it's just brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's such an amazing actor.
Oh yeah, and he says himself he's somebody that's pretty passionate, but this one he's so cold, and he's wonderful. So yeah, definitely worth seeing.
Hey, you sold me on it. I'm definitely gonna check that out. Hoping it passes on Movie Network. Otherwise, I'll have to download it. No, I'm kidding. For me, if there's any actress that deserves more attention and that has given consistently good, Joseph Gordon-Levitt caliber performance throughout the aughts, it's Olivia Thirlby. Few people actually know her name, but she was, for example, the best friend of Juno. She plays a dumbass in Juno, but if you watch Juno again, watch how much Ellen Page sort of shines a lot more when she gets to bounce off that actress. And she plays in a movie called Si J'étais Toi. In English, it's called The Secret, with Lily Taylor and David Duchovny. And the story is, after an accident, involving a mother and a daughter. The mind of the mother finds itself in the body of the daughter, and the body of the mother is dead. And here's the kicker: it's not a comedy. It actually takes that really tired premise, but like goes through it with its logical implications and its most disturbing implications in terms of sexuality. You have a wife who's still turned on by her husband, but the husband is looking at his daughter, not his wife. But he's talking to his wife, so sexually he's completely confused. And you have a mother who wishes her daughter would have her life back, but that would mean that she's going to disappear if that happens, and all of those conflicts. And it's just played as a straight drama with all of these implications. It's just such a weird and fascinating movie. And the sort of thing you really just find more in Quebec filmmaking than you would in English.
No, that's interesting. I didn't see that one. If you recommend like Quebec films, probably watch Crazy.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, such a great film. And one of my all-time favorites is Gazval Blues. It's such a great film, and it's just kind of like a guy movie, like a bunch of guys sitting around making jokes, and then you see this father trying to keep his three sons really close and kind of failing, and they're all kind of falling apart in different ways, and just having this father that can't keep it all together. And actually, since we're recommending, like, I'm gonna overstep here. There's also this great film that was shot like all in Spanish, Captain Aletriste.
I didn't see that either.
Yeah, it's a long film though. Like, it kind of covers like 3 novels, and it deals with the Three Musketeers time. It's just fascinating and beautiful, and also the way it was shot. Like, obviously, like these castles are still around, but it's a lot of alleyways. It's a lot of people kind of walking and talking, and well, it's like looking at old pictures, huh? Like some of these old pictures that are kind of yellowish and everything, and you're kind of slowly going into it, and you're like, wow, it's 2 hours, but it feels like 4. But even then, I'm still with it. I'm still watching this film. I can't stop it.
Well, as long as we're going into foreign language movies, I guess that's what we call them. Well, there's one movie that I'm going to call underrated for the simple reason that it did not get international release, and that frustrates me to no end. In English, it's called Blessing Bell. It's a Japanese movie. In Japanese, the name, I think, is Kofuku no Kani, which I'm sure that helped everybody out.
Yeah.
It's just this amazing movie by a director called Cebu, who just does some of the best movies in Japan. And it's the story of a factory worker who gets laid off. Like, the entire factory closes down, so everybody gets laid off. And before going home, he's in such a shock that he decides to just take a long walk. And throughout his entire long walk, which is the entirety of the movie, he encounters different characters and goes through different situations, but doesn't say one freaking word through it all. And that's all this movie is, and it's so good, and it's so full of like just brilliant like human observations about human
Sounds
nature.
Good.
Yeah,
it's also, speaking of foreign films, you should see The Prophet, the French film that came out not too long ago.
Yeah,
it did get a lot of attention, but not that many people has watched it. I don't know why. It's absolutely brilliant.
I think it's the title.
Really?
Because it's a French movie. It's called The Prophet. Everybody like, oh, I don't know. And it's like they don't realize that, it's a crime movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a modern French Scarface in a way. You get this petty thug that goes into jail and he grows. And you meet some really interesting characters. And the whole thing basically is when he comes into jail, when he comes out of jail, and everything that happens in between. And wow, there's a lot of things that happen in between. It's definitely worth it. And honestly, it's 2.5 hours. You'll never see it go by.
Oh yeah, no, well, it's because it covers a sort of ground that you'd find The Godfather or whatnot. It's sort of that epic crime movie style. So.
And it is fascinating.
It did get nominated for an Oscar.
Yep. Didn't win. Should have.
So those are the underrated movies of the aughts. Yes, we're leaving some out. Like I could have talked about 13. Tons. I could have talked about a whole bunch of movies, but those are the ones we picked, folks. Don't download them.
Yeah.
See what I did there? I started with a theme and I came back to it to give the false sense of narrative progression to the podcast.
Did you start with the end and then work your way back?
No, I didn't. I should have, though.
Oh, there you go.
It turns out Joseph Gordon-Levitt was a ghost the whole time.
Yeah.
There you go. That's drama right there.
Yeah. He was Cobra Commander.
You know he's going to be stuck playing Cobra Commander again as well, because they're making a second one. So.
Why? Well, does he need to? They just put a mask.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sure they got him on contract, though.
Poor guy. He was like on Third Rock from the Sun. And then, yeah, doing completely different films, and I was going to be stuck in the second G.I. Joe.
You know? Hey,
Didn't we say everything we needed to say with the first G.I. Joe?
No.
The more you know, folks.
You know, because we still haven't seen what happens when Serpentor enters the scene.
I'm not ready for another movie with Snake Eye.
And there you go, folks. That's what's awaiting you on the next decade.
So, yeah. Forget his name. Joseph
Levitt Gordon.
Yeah, Levitt Gordon. This kid's amazing. Simply brilliant actor, and it's basically an old 1950s noir film, like the detective who has this girlfriend that calls him up out of the blue, and she says, like, I want to meet you, and then next thing you know, he finds the corpse, and he wants to find who killed her. And the thing is, it's taking place into a school, but it's not a school.
Welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. I'm Dimitri, webmaster of thedreamersedge.com and movie critic for BillyDo.com.
I'm Eric, teacher that watches movies.
And welcome to Over Under the Aughts Part 2. And by that, I don't actually mean that we're going to talk about 2005 to 2011. No, instead we're going to talk about the underrated movies between 2000 and 2010.
Those are kind of like the films that we like that most likely did not have the attention that we feel they deserve.
And a lot of it is because, you know, the marketing machine of Hollywood has become so evolved that it's really hard to, you know, get through some of it.
Well, you were saying that, like, there's no more room for...
word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you discover something really cool, is your friend recommended that. But yeah, we're not seeing that anymore, really.
That's true. Thank God for DVD Market, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which allows me to plug something that I always mean to address, because a lot of people talk about downloading, and downloading movies so much the rage, and I want to talk about one thing. The Hurt Locker, which won the Oscar, complete independent movie, you know, made on a shoestring budget, did not have any sort of wide release that a movie like that deserved. Usually, when a movie like that wins the Oscar, it's supposed to do gangbusters in home video. It flopped in home video because everybody downloaded it instead of renting it or buying it.
Yeah.
And so for people who think that, you know, Hollywood is so rich and you can download, it's not going to hurt the industry, small movies like The Hurt Locker actually get their ass kicked because of illegal downloading. And we actually have the proof of it. That's exactly what happened to Hurt Locker. Let's talk about some of the movies we wish you would rent and not download.
Absolutely.
So what's your first underrated pick then?
Brick.
Excellent choice.
Yeah. Probably a very, very low budget film. I was